we're sitting here with Dom Vettise of Vettise Psychology. I've worked with Dom on a personal level and as a team level, and I really wanted to share some of the awesome lessons that I've learned through Dom and through exploring psychology in my own mind, and get an insight into the world of performance psychology, sleep psychology, and what it's like to work with some world champions. Dom, we'll start off with, what did you do on the weekend, mate?
This weekend? Swimming with Sienna, my daughter. Yeah, so that happens every Saturday, 9:30. Jump in the pool with her at St. Peter's and a bit of a swim round. And yeah, so she loves her swimming lessons, so it always starts with that. And then we would have probably gone for a bike ride or something like that, a couple of bike rides, head to a park.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty much the weekends just revolve around Sienna and those sorts of things. We went to Taupo, caught up with a cousin who came over from Australia with his family.
Yeah.
So we went to that, and I think probably just more bike rides and eat some good food, and yeah.
And is it a chance to ground yourself and think about what's good, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Because I am quite busy during the week and often feel bad that I can't spend more and more time with Sienna and Maria, but I think the weekend is very much dad time as much as possible, so anything I can do to spend more time with them, the better, I guess, yeah.
Nice. And so, how would you describe you as a person today? What would be Dom Vettise? If you had to write, a preface to a book or something like that.
It's funny you ask that. So normally if I'm working with people, that's the question I would ask them, and so I've often had to think about, well, what the heck am I? And I guess, I always start with, well, my role is I'm dad, number one, husband as well. Then from that is son, brother, that sort of stuff. But I guess defining me, I often try and stick to a thing called my CIA. Mm-hmm. Which sounds a bit geeky, but it's actually quite useful. So I always talk about C standing for courage, I standing for industry, just got to work bloody hard, and then A being just authentic, be a good authentic person. So I'd say those are probably the three characteristics that I try to revolve my life around, and all my behaviours and different things like that within those different contexts of my roles. Yeah.
So I said, in our session together, you sort of spoke on the industry and working hard, and you said that came from your dad. Now, you're sort of taking a balance of that. What do you think working hard is bringing you in life, and why do you keep that as one of your focuses?
I think probably what I was taught is that you get what you deserve. So assuming on that if you work hard, then good things are going to come. I guess partly what I've learned is that's not always the case. You think about in sport, people can work really blooming hard, but they don't always get what they want, because sometimes it's just someone out there that's a bit better. So I guess I've come to the realisation that, I'll work really hard, but I've got to accept when things aren't going to quite work out the way that I had planned. Mm-hmm. But as long as I stick to those three core values, then I'm really happy with that, whatever the outcome. With Dad, he works really, really hard, so he works quite long hours. I can't remember him working like a second job or whatever, but he tells me that he used to do things like extra things at night time and that, and he always just drilled into me, even like with football and with sport, that you train just as hard as you play. And I guess that was always the same with when I worked and with my academics and my studies and that sort of stuff. So that's been really drilled into me, sometimes to my detriment, but often it's the thing that would drive me and keep me quite, self-determined. Yeah.
And so how do you catch yourself doing something too much or that's not coming off?
So I guess that's been probably the big learning for me this year, is delving into too much. And I guess in psychology it's quite easy to burn out with a lot of the stuff that you take on and take in. And I guess sort of starting my business and really wanting to get into sports psychology, especially this year, it's really tempting to say yes all the time to every opportunity that possibly comes by. And sometimes you can be up till 1 o'clock at night, 1:30 at night, and still get up for 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning for the gym. and you soon burn out quite quickly. So I guess I'm really lucky in that. Maria and I, my wife, she's got pretty good communication where she'll often pick up on that stuff a bit quicker than I do. And I've got some good friends and a supervisor in psychology who often pick up on that stuff. I guess I try and moderate it myself by just reflecting on, how tired are you getting, how many things are you saying yes to, how are you balancing time with family versus time at work. They're probably the big things, and I sort of know what I start to do. Like I'm a classic comfort eater, so I sort of know when I start delving into too many treats that there's probably something going on there for me as well. So I was just, that's the thing that I'm still trying to work on and learn myself is when is too much.
Yeah. Nice. You touched on your dad's influence. What were you like as a 5-year-old, and how does that show up today?
Yeah, so 5 years. So I think I've spoken to Dad about this actually before. He reckoned I would be characterised as placid. So I think he's kind of meant that I was a very good boy. I just did whatever was told of me. My wife, she reckons when she's spoken to my parents about me, she called me studious, which I guess is somewhat similar.
Yeah.
And on my reflections, I'd sort of say I was a people pleaser. Yeah, I was very, very eager to please, and I guess that kind of underlies both what Maria would say is studious and what Mum and Dad would say is placid. I was very eager to please Mum and Dad a lot of the time, and that's quite interesting because it certainly influences me a lot, certainly over probably a lot of my teenage years and even now, where you constantly say yes, like I said before, saying yes to things when you probably can't even do it, but you just want to help someone out, you want to please them, so sometimes that can be to your detriment. It's certainly detrimental in sport a lot of the time as well, because really, to be honest, if you put it bluntly, it's kind of good to not really give a shit about what other people think and not worry about judgment and peer acceptance and learning to belong and things like that, and I was riddled with that all through my teenage and adolescent years. Yeah, so it's nice to fall into line and be a good boy and things like that, but really that probably didn't necessarily help me all that much as I sort of grew up. Yeah,
and so your awareness of it, obviously there's some good traits around that, and I know it's you hear you say that and how that follows you through adolescence and the things that you look back on and think, oh, I didn't need to do that. How do you stop that from becoming a negative and keep it as a positive?
It's a really hard one. I think it is it's a thing that I probably picked up a lot on, probably when I was working at corrections actually, is that peer influence of wanting to feel accepted and wanting to belong, and I think that's how a lot of people, I guess, you can go many ways, but I guess in the corrections realm, that's why a lot of people go into the gangs a lot of the time, is because they don't feel necessarily accepted or belong at home, so they try and find somewhere to belong, and a lot of the time that is the gangs, because that's just who will accept you for whatever you are. I guess mine was a bit different, where I guess I was really keen to please, I was really wanting to belong, wanting to be accepted, and that made me just really anxious a lot of the time. And then so I started putting on this, I guess when I went through high school, this facade of being a bit of a narcissistic dickhead, which is a real shame when I look back on it, because that's not really who I wanted to be. So I guess I just really did that to protect myself a lot of the time. So, I felt or looked confident, but really I wasn't. And I guess one of the things that I'm trying to work on now is to identify when that comes into play. Like, I remember a supervisor early in my psychology training was quite concerned about why I wasn't asking about suicide, or asking a client about, have you been having thoughts of suicide? And often a lot of that was playing out because I was so worried about what they would think of me of intruding in their personal space. And that was probably one of the most important questions I should have been asking. So I guess I'm aware of that a lot of the time, because in my work it can actually stop me from asking the important questions, and I've got to be able to I guess, be aware of what's going on and then sort of check back with myself. And this is why I like the idea of courage as one of my values, is because then I'll sit back and I'll say to myself, well, what the hell does courage look like in this situation? It will help me to ask those questions. I just kind of really just try and challenge a lot of those thoughts that sit in my head at that particular time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. No, and probably yourself giving me another string to the bow to look at that concept. That's cool. You spoke about being up at 5 a.m. for the gym. What does the first sort of 90 minutes ideally look like for you, and where does it fall down?
Yeah, well, 5 o'clock is a bit of a lie. I'd say, and to be honest, I'm only just getting back into it. It feels like I'm constantly getting back into the gym. So I'd say about 5:15. Tuesdays, Thursdays, just go down to the gym and just do a bit of a boot camp, which is pretty cool. I've never really done boot camps and things like that before, but it's quite nice as exercising with people. So I try and do that maybe 4 times a week, and then get back home by about 6:15, 6:30, and then Sienna's up. Maria's normally started to get her ready, but then you get her breakfast sorted, which is normally the classic wheat bix and oats, and her and I will often sit down and have breakfast together, which is always heaps of fun, and then Maria's getting ready and joins us eventually, which is great. So we often sit down and have breakfast and through until it seems sort of like 6:45, 7 o'clock sometimes. We might just be laughing or joking around, or Sienna's found something that she's fascinated with. Like this morning it was the belt buckle on her little bumbo high chair thing that she was absolutely fascinated with, so that's quite cool. And then getting myself ready, and then I'm normally the one that would drop Sienna off at daycare in the morning, and then off to work from there at about 7:45ish, and then start my day from there really, which is normally started at my work at Haora Waikato, which is a multi-mental health organisation. Love the way they start work. So every morning I started with karakia and waiata. So we'll often start by singing, doing prayer all together as a big group, and just the most fantastic way actually to start a day. I was a bit nervous about it at first, but yeah, I'm right into it. I really, really enjoyed it. So that's probably the first hour and a half, 2 hours of my day.
Nice. And do you have any Māori heritage?
No, none at all. No, Italian heritage is probably what I'm most proud of. And I don't know why I connect with that. But yeah, it's something that I've been really proud of, for a very long time. I tried to, so my grandfather, his parents were both full Italians, and they sort of come from Monte Cassino, and what I learned actually in 2015, Maria and I did a bit of a world trip, and we went to Italy, and we actually went to the Pompeii ruins, and there is a place called Casa di Vettise, which is actually, my uncle's trying to trace it back. They believe that that's where our first ancestors started, was in that house. So the story goes is that there was these 2 brothers that came from Monte Cassino, and they came down as slaves through to Pompeii, and their names were the Vettise brothers. So Vettise meaning high up, so they're high up in the mountains. And then over time, I think their name changed to, or the name eventually changed to Vettise, or possibly even Vettise, because easy means comes from, so it comes from high up, so that's where we think the last name came from. Yeah, and they essentially, they won their freedom by, I think it was by becoming like blacksmiths and making perfume and things like that. And in this house, unfortunately I wasn't able to see it, they've got all the artwork all around the house tells the story of how they won their freedom, and they became actually really rich in Pompeii because they essentially owned all the brothels. So they come from ancestors of them pimps pretty much. So no Māori heritage, but some Italian heritage and some English heritage, and a lot of Kiwi from mum's side.
And so working in a Māori environment, has that sort of made you look more at where you've come from as well? I'm sure there's plenty of people that will definitely start their day off with introducing themselves with a Pepe or me, and let you know their heritage and who they belong to and where they belong to. And has that made you explore that anymore? Or?
Yeah, so it definitely has. To be honest, I actually think working with corrections, they did a really good job of increasing my cultural competency. So they would often talk about like your PPH and help you learn that. I guess sort of about once a month we have a thing called Hui Tokua, which is often looking back at a few of those things at Hawara Waikato. Like this week we did something about the connection with the water, which is really quite cool because I do feel really connected to the water. It's one thing I miss probably actually being in Cambridge, and I would try to get over to Tauranga quite a bit because there is water, right there. So they've definitely helped me look into that a little bit more and understand a little bit more about who I am, where I can draw strength from. I really like the Māori concepts of identity, really. And that's why I'm so, proud of or feel a bit connected to the Italian stuff and really try and understand that. And when I meet a client for the first time, I'll often talk to them about a lot of that sort of stuff to help them understand who I am as a person, because I'm about to find out who you are as a person. So, yeah.
Nice. And you spoke on football, getting down to Dunedin. How did you balance Dunedin with football, or did football get balanced by Dunedin?
It's really interesting. I had a really good first year of football down there. I really enjoyed it, and I think, I didn't really feel the pressure that I felt when I was playing in Wanganui on the central region. And I just learnt to really, love my football and play a little bit more so for me. In terms of, that was always the thing that I looked forward to it. At the end of the day was going out with a whole bunch of mates to go and play a sport that we absolutely loved. I was in the halls in the first year down there, and I'd often get picked up by one of the older boys, and they would take me all the way to Moscow, which was often a 20-25 minute drive or something like that. And I think it balanced me out quite well, just in terms of I just had another focus opposed from studying and drinking, to be honest. And that's just so important. And it's the same now. It's just having that balance. There's nothing better.
That's right. And so how did you get picked up to go to Moscow instead of one of the big clubs in Dunedin, Tech or Cobham?
There's no other bigger club than Moscow.
Or something like that, mate?
Yeah, so essentially I tried for the uni team to start with, and I was fortunate enough to make that. But my cousin, he played for Moscow for many, many years. And he said, you can't play for that rubbish team. So I kind of got dragged out. And then I knew the coach of the National League, Malcolm Fleming. He was out there at the time as well. And I really wanted to, I had some really good coaching by a German coach in Wanganui, and I really wanted to continue that. And I heard Malcolm was really, really good. So I decided to go out there. So that's how I made the switch, and I stayed with them for the entire 5 years that I was down there.
Nice.
Give or take when I was injured.
You've been in the Southern soccer team environment. What do you think is the difference between Southern and the other football unions? Canterbury's even had a time when they've been competitive. Central and Waibot, they've again been two sides that have battled, and you can see with Central, there's the Wanganui and the Hawke's Bay guys going at it in the other split. But why do you think that Southern's struggled in a football capacity?
Why have they struggled? Oh man, that's a really hard question to answer. To be honest, I don't really know the question. I guess potentially the focus down there is a lot on rugby. That may be one potential reason, and a lot of the uni guys probably go down there and play some good style of rugby and things like that. Target Highlanders is obviously a very strong team, great team. And maybe the football down there just isn't seen as important as perhaps as it is up here in Auckland or in Wellington or even in the central regions. I'm not too sure whether it's they can't get the players down there because it's just too bloody freezing. But you get used to that, don't you?
Absolutely.
I'm not too sure. I really not, because the quality of the football in the actual leagues in Otago is actually really good. Like very, very strong, big tackles, good technical ability. It's probably the big things that I noticed, and I really struggled to adapt actually to the physicality of the Southern League.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially also just got to look at Chatham Cup, like, you've got your Caversham, Roslyn, Mosgiel, Dunedin Tech, they all do exceptionally well in the Chatham Cup when it comes to bringing it all together, and you maybe wonder that they have a retention problem. You're there for 5 years, but again,
well, I mean, that's the thing as well, is actually, now you mention it, a lot of the key players, they may be uni people and they go back to their hometowns in the summer.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality for them, unfortunately. But Caversham was a very, very strong team. When I was down there, I guess Steve Fleming, he was the coach of Caversham, and he was apparently absolutely brilliant. And they've done so well in Chatham Cup for so many years. Yeah, so I'm not too sure about Southern football.
And so you spoke with us the first time you introduced yourself at Hotapu. What drove you to get involved with rugby?
I guess two things. So my mentor, David Galbraith, he had been there, I think, maybe 10 years prior and done the same thing, and I was being mentored by him at that point in time. So I guess he was a bit of an influence to go try out the rugby, get some exposure to sports psychology. So I guess that was the first part. And I guess the second part was really trying to form a bit more of a connection with my grandfather, so my pop on my mum's side. I'd never really been that interested in rugby, to be honest. Like, I loved watching the All Blacks, but I'd watch football any day over rugby at that point in time. And Pop had been quite unwell at that stage, so I really wanted something that I could go back and talk to him about as well. And again, for me, like a lot about the sport is how can you connect with people. So that was really important. Was about how can I connect with Pop, and it was really nice to be able to talk about some of the rugby things that I was doing, with you guys and now with the Blackburn Sevens, to be able to have that conversation with him, and it does really brighten him up. I mean, he was an All Black himself back in 53, 54. So sometimes that's just the only thing that inspires him. Let's have those little stories and things like that, and yarns and banter. So yeah, I kind of felt that connection when I came to Hotapu. It was like, okay, I'm actually learning more about him through sport. Yeah.
Nice, and it's taken you onto the Blackburns. There's someone who's battling away to try and get sports vision into the New Zealand psyche. You had a little bit of a head start with psychology, people like Gilbert and Nocat. What were your stepping stones through the Blackburns, mate?
Luck. I like to think a little bit of luck. So essentially, the long story. Do you want the long story?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
So when I was training in the clinical psychology program, in my second year there, up here in the Waikato, I actually went to where I am now, Holder, and trained and did some forensic work. And my supervisor there, she asked me, what do you really want to do? And I said, I think I really want to do forensics. And she goes, you sound hesitant. I said, I've always really wanted to do sports psychology as well, but I don't want to tell you that on my placement when I'm trying to get a job with you guys as well. And she said, my husband does sports psychology. I was like, okay, what's his name? She said, David Galbraith. I said, okay, cool, put that in the back pocket and thought to remember that. And it probably wasn't until a few years later where I was doing some boarding house work at St Peter's School, and one of the boys brought home this book called Unleashing Greatness, and he goes, "Oh, so you like psychology, eh?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Have a read of this." And so I took it away, and I'm not the best reader in the world at all, so I was a bit hesitant, and then I remembered the name. I've heard that before, and then I remembered it was Aroha's husband, and she'd said, get in contact with him. So I thought, might as well just try and get in contact with them.
That's one of the tips in the book. If you could choose a mentor, just ask them.
Yep, pretty much. So, and I think I was actually up to that point in the book at that stage, and so I just thought, stuff it, I'll just give him an email and see what happens. And sure enough, he wanted to meet up. So that was fantastic. So we often got together and had a few coffees and just talked about. He really encouraged me to come up a bit with my own model of psychology, which was really foreign to me, because I was so used to working in the corrections frame of mind in terms of this is how you do it, and I was new in my practice, so you do everything by the book and you hope that things are manualised, and he was kind of encouraging me to go the complete opposite way. which was actually really nice and challenged me mentally. So I was ticking along with him quite nicely and connecting with a few other people as well in the sports psychology realm. And then the other part of the book, which said to just send an email to a group of people that you really want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'd love to work with the All Whites. Just absolutely love to work with the All Whites, but I didn't really back myself to send an email to Anthony Hudson at that point in time. So I thought, I'll stuff it. What's the next best thing? So I thought I'll send an email to Wybot Football.
Yeah.
And seeing if they want to work with a psychologist. And lo and behold, within 2 days, I got a reply saying, yes, we'd love to have you. And I thought, oh shit, what do I do now? What do I do now? So I ended up catching up with them and meeting with them. And that was really my first little introduction, I guess, to sports psychology, was working with that team. And then alongside that, I did some work at St Peter's School with the rowing.
Yeah.
One of the rowing coaches there had a bit of faith in me to be able to deliver something that he thought his crews would really benefit from. So I did like 3 sessions with them, and I guess it's sort of grown from there. I did the Hotapu stuff as well. High performance sport had me doing a couple of things to some of their pre-carded athletes where I do presentations. And I guess the opportunity came where David, he sort of said, he looks after both the women's and the men's sevens, and he said, would you be interested in doing some of this work? I said, I'd love to. Again, absolutely shitting myself, thinking, why me? Why the heck would you choose me? There's another 1,000 people much better than me. But I thought, this is an opportunity. This is something I'd normally shy away from.
Yeah.
But it's time to use a little bit of courage and go for it. So I said yes, and he's continued to mentor me through that. So that would have happened. Started working with him January 2017. So yeah, it's coming up to a year now with them.
Brilliant. Before we delve into the Black Ferns, is there any sort of common traits that you find in athletes that you're sort of low-hanging fruit that comes with athletes?
In terms of what they find difficult, or what they need to be a good athlete?
I think in terms of what they find difficult to begin with, yeah.
I guess a lot of my referrals that I would see is a lot around confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to be more confident because there is the assumption that having more confidence makes you a better athlete, and they want confidence in the sports realm, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think we need to learn how to be confident individuals in terms of understanding who you are as a person, and this is why I come back to identity a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's probably the main thing is confidence. That's what I often get referred to for. So confidence, pre-race, pre-match anxiety. How do I manage negative thoughts in a game or in a race? They are probably the common ones that I'll often get through the door.
Nice. And a topic that you reiterated to me was the feelings affecting, around thoughts affecting feelings, contributing to behaviour, and then the negative feedback loop that you can create through that. Why is that so effective? And I believe it's something to do with the limbic system. Is that right?
Yeah. So so that's just when we were talking about that, I was going back to the tried and true CBT, which is what I was trained in, the cognitive behaviour therapy.
Uh-huh.
So the idea that an event happens, we perceive it or think about it in some sort of way. Often it's negative first because the brain's negatively wired. Then those thoughts elicit certain feelings or an intensity of that feeling. That feeling is what drives our performance or behaviour. I guess you're talking about the limbic system. I guess go back to the amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
So the amygdala is, I guess, like the fear centre of the brain a little bit, and often when an event happens and we perceive it in a negative way, it sort of sparks or alerts the amygdala. A lot of the time you go into that fight-flight response. And then you get a whole lot of physical sort of reactions going on as well, where the body thinks it's under some sort of threat in some way or another, which then shuts down all your thinking, shuts down your decision making, which essentially shuts down your frontal lobe as much as possible. And then we sort of then feel negative, so we start feeling anxious, or we feel low in mood, or angry, or whatever the case may be. And then we behave based on that feeling a lot of the time. So I guess that's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
You speak about the frontal cortex there, and definitely in a position of decision making, such as the first 5-8. What are some real tactics for keeping frontal and not shooting out the back to your amygdala?
I guess probably the main thing that I often think about, or I've been referring back to, and I know us Westerners are absolutely butchering the idea of mindfulness, but the idea about staying present a lot of the time. So I think when we think about the future, we get quite anxious. When we think about the past, we often get quite upset about what mistakes we've made and things like that. So the idea is to try and bring yourself back into the present moment as much as possible. So I'll try and get athletes in the best way I know possible to start practicing the idea of mindfulness, which I guess is being present in the current moment without judgment and attending to the things that you can, I guess, control in a sports atmosphere. So I'm teaching them a lot of those things, and some simple things can be some grounding exercises, which is like, what do your feet feel like in your boots? What does the grass feel like? I often talk about like the 5 senses, a real simple one. What can you touch? What can you taste? What can you smell? What can you see around you? What can you hear? To again bring yourself back into the present moment. But at the same time, you've got to be pretty self-aware to be able to know where your mind's going, and can you bring yourself back. The problem with, I guess, a lot of athletes is that they think that they only need to practice this stuff while they're training or while they're in a game. But the reality is you need to make this a real habit of yours that you're doing every single day in every aspect of your life. The brain doesn't decide to start wandering or switch its attention to something specific while you're playing sport. It will do it. It will do it when you're, working as an optometrist. It will do it when you're trying to talk to the missus. It will do it when you're having an argument with parents or the next door neighbour. You've got to learn to be able to practice it in every single aspect of your life and really actually work at it, because it's not just going to work like that in sport if you're not practicing it in your everyday life.
I had a severe amygdala hijack this year. Actually spoke about it on a mini podcast where it got to the semi-finals and I was benched, and I just could not bring myself down. And even when I got home and trying to bring myself down all night. And something that I've started doing this year is trying to journal in the morning, and it probably wasn't until then where I wrote some things to be grateful of and started to turn me around again. And come Saturday, I was a much better person. But
I know. At that point in time, it's like your mind just completely narrows into the one thing or the things that you've done wrong or something that hasn't gone quite right. And actually, when you sit back and go, well, shit, is this actually that bad in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah.
You start to go, and it's so good that you're writing things as well. Like I often tell people, to keep things in your head is just like doing a puzzle with it still sitting in its box. What you've got to do is you've got to take that lid off, put the pieces all on the floor, and then start working with it. And that's why I think journaling, writing about things, that's really useful.
Yeah.
Even now with some like younger athletes and that, they don't want to write, but they're quite happy to text. So you set up a text or a WhatsApp thing with yourself and quickly text that. So at least it is getting you writing and seeing what you're actually thinking. Because often when we see it, like, oh, that actually doesn't make any sense once I see what's actually going on. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
No, it was funny because it was part of my brother's not MBA but a business extramural business course that he's doing, and he's talking about this amygdala hijack, and then sure enough, a couple of weeks later, here I am, can't concentrate, can't move on.
I like how you're not the psychologist and you call it an amygdala hijack. I call it just a brain fart.
I think Bobby Boucher, the water boy makes amygdala stick.
Yeah.
No, cool. So why then are the Black Ferns so dominant? They had a wee drop off where England went professional and came out and basically walloped them. Then all of a sudden we've turned it back around. We've done so well in the sevens. We won back the world champion in the 15s. What's the focus like? What's the environment like with those women?
So I can't talk about the 15s, but I can talk to you about the sevens. I guess the big thing for us, the big focus for us has always been about whanaungatanga. So about connecting with each other, and that's often one of the big focuses throughout camps, throughout the girls, and that's not only connection with, I guess, other people on the team and management, but connection with themselves, so understanding themselves as best as possible. So that's always, I guess, a massive focus, and I think that's really worked wonders for them, because when you've got that connection with someone, you learn to trust them a lot more on the field, so you can trust them to do their job, do their role essentially. And the other thing is it means any dirty laundry is able to be aired out without fear of judgment. It also means that you feel safe enough to make mistakes, so therefore the fear of failing or fear of making mistakes kind of goes out the window. So I guess that's the big thing that these girls have really been working on. Why that works so well? It's not because of psychology. They've got an absolutely incredible management. So like the three main coaches. So you've got Bunce, you've got Corey, and you've got Stu. They absolutely exude mana, which is one of the big things that we talk about. They're prepared to listen to the girls. They're prepared to be wrong. They're prepared to make mistakes themselves. They listen to each other. They communicate. The same goes right through to the manager, Nelly, the physio and strength and conditioning trainer, the nutritionist. Everyone just feels like everyone's on the same playing field, same level. And I think that's what really helps this team hum quite a lot. And the girls will talk about that themselves, is that they feel like that they can go to management whenever they need to. There's obviously still some creases that need to be ironed out, but I think that it was probably really key to their success 2016, 2017. Actually, I think there's an interview with Michaela Blyde, and she actually speaks about the team culture as being the best thing about this team and why they're doing so well. And again, that's something that completely underlies everything that we do. Yeah.
Awesome. And I follow a few of them, and I see the likes of Tyler, Nathan Wong, and others all studying together, and then there's a few mothers in the side, and they look, it's like one big crash, the New Zealand Women's Sevens team. And
yeah, man. Yeah, no, you're 100% right there. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about when you're an athlete, you can't just be an athlete. You can't just expect to do your mental skills or your training just in the sports realm. You've got to make a habit of this in your everyday life. So, when they're studying together, when we come together as a family, we actually mean we're a family. So kids are allowed to come along. My daughter Sienna's come along a couple of times. It is actually lived and breathed in that rugby team.
Nice. And so there's quite a bit in the media at the moment around diversity. What's it like having such awesome role models for Sienna around to interact with?
Absolutely brilliant. This is why I don't understand why I've been picked for this amazing opportunity, because I feel so privileged to be a part of that culture and that team. And I look at a lot of them, not just as rugby players, but some of them are just incredible mothers, and I'm going, oh man, can I learn how to be a good parent off you? And it is fantastic, not just for Sienna, but really actually all young women. And the key thing is a lot of them will say, yeah, rugby is one part of my life, but that's not my full identity. I am a mother, I am a sister, I am a rugby player, and that's really important as well, especially when at some stage, hopefully not, but at some stage they will taste defeat.
Yeah.
But it's important for them to not go, oh, now what do I have? Because I think the thing is, if you just purely see yourself as a rugby player, as an athlete, if you lose, then that part of your identity gets taken away, and then often you see a lot of players or athletes saying, well, who the hell am I?
Yeah.
So I guess that's what's part of my job, is to help them really understand who they are. And so whenever I introduce myself, I don't introduce myself as Dom the psychologist. I'm so much more than that. Mm-hmm. Because once that identity gets taken away or stripped away from you, whether it's from a suspension in other sports, for example, or from a loss, it is hard to come back from. you think about guys even retiring. You know, you've grown up for most of your life with sponsorships known as such and such the rugby player. And then all of a sudden you finish, whether it's by your own choice or because of an injury or because you're not being picked, you've got nothing left. No wonder we have quite a lot of athletes that are really struggling with suicidal thoughts or unhelpful behaviours. Yeah, they just don't know what to do, so we've got to make sure that support's there for them. And that's why I'm so keen on helping these girls understand, who they are, what their identity is, and finding strength from that.
And do you think that, like, in New Zealand we're lucky with the Rugby Foundation and that it supports someone if they got injured and covers a lot of their insurance and things, but do you think there's a gap in your Joe Bloggs player being able to integrate, if you will? Like, do we need a sort of a rehabilitation and integration system for senior professional athletes?
That's such a good question. I actually don't know too much about that side of things, but my guess would be probably yes. It would be really nice if we could put something in there for that intermediate thing. Because, even just with sports psychology, it'd be great if we had. And there are, to be honest, there's a lot more people that are working with, clubs like Hotapu that aren't professional or even semi-professional. Or, it would be good to be able to have even just some education about well-being and all that sort of stuff, and where you can actually go to if you need that extra help.
Awesome. The girls obviously got second at the Olympics. How did they sort of deal with that? And obviously they bounced back strong, but you spoke about Mana and where was the pride in that silver medal, and how did they consolidate the fact that it wasn't gold?
I don't really know because I wasn't around then.
Yeah.
I guess part of them is just thinking that it's a learning curve. I guess I would reflect back on I don't know if you've heard of Carol Dweck's work, which is a really good read, by the way, which talks about fixed versus growth mindset. And a lot of the girls, from what I know of them, have got a really great growth mindset. So every opportunity is an opportunity to learn. And to be honest, a lot of the focus isn't really on. We know that we're all here to win a gold medal for whatever reason, but that's just an outcome. Again, the focus of success is characterised by how much money you leave on the field. And if they felt, again, I don't know because I wasn't there, if they felt like that they left as much money as they possibly could on that field and they still came away with the silver medal, then they'll be really happy with that. But I guess it does give them extra motivation to want to strive for that gold medal. But I guess that's just the icing on the cake at the end of the day. We need to be great people, great athletes, and really focus on the things that are going to help them get the gold medal rather than define themselves by a gold medal. So I guess that's probably how they've been able to bounce back from that. It's go, okay, well, what have we actually learned from this situation? How have we grown? What opportunities can we take next time? Yeah.
There's definitely huge applications for that everyday life.
100%.
If you want to think about, houses and cars and jobs and salaries, or you can think about the great work that you're doing, the people you're influencing, the people you're meeting, how you're sharing your money, you're going to be a lot happier in your day-to-day. So.
Yeah, and I think that's been the big change for me. So I always thought that being successful was about having a great big house, earning a good salary, having a nice car, getting accolades from people, and that's probably where I was a lot of the time, not necessarily the house and stuff, but getting accolades from people, and I was basing my self-esteem on the respect or the talk that I got from people. And I guess when you're in that zone, everything just feels like it's out of your control to some degree, because you're basing your happiness or your success on things that you might not necessarily get. So that's why I've really tried to draw it back to, and do with a lot of my athletes, is what are your core values, what's actually important to you, what is actually going to help you get those things. So for me, I understand that if I show courage in nearly every opportunity that I get, if I work really bloody hard, and if I just try to be a good, genuine, honest, authentic person, if I'm CIA in action, then those things will eventually come. But I can't choose those as to be my focus or as the markers of success. My markers of success, I guess, are my CIA. And that's what I guess I'm trying to build in any of my athletes or any of my clients that come through my door.
Nice. Probably a way that for most of us that distracts us away from what we're doing is the social media. And the first time I heard Dave speak was on Radio Sport.
Yeah.
It was somebody's social media had done something silly, and he really talked about that if you're going to be on social media, that you need to be presenting basically mana and being a good example, and then trying to make that follow in your life. And he was quite funny, as I'm sure you know from him. He was quite blunt and said, "I just wish that my 15, 16 to 20-year-old athletes were, could make it to 40 and just not give a puck anymore."
Yeah.
Yeah. But with the girls, obviously plenty of them are on social media and Instagram, and it's how I keep a watch on what's happening in both sevens teams. How does that sort of influence them as people, and what's the sort of talk around what they should be presenting? Obviously, a few of them are personal brands and sponsorship and things like that. Is there much going on around that? Any of the things that you deal with of the kickback of being a public figure?
I personally haven't had to deal with any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I guess that's something you're always aware of when you're working with these types of athletes. I guess they probably have their own mentoring around what they can and can't present on social media a lot of the time, and they probably have their own mentor around that. I guess I'll just pick up the pieces if that seems to happen, but I guess the message is always the same. It's just put yourself out there how you want to be presented. Just be the best that you possibly can be. Be yourself.
Yeah,
is the message, whatever that looks like for them. Yeah.
No, cool. Now, with Vettise, you try to present your long form Facebook post.
Yeah.
What got you started doing that? Because I really appreciate them. What got you started doing that? And what does it sort of do for you, I guess?
I guess the main reason I did that was because I was kind of annoyed at the fact that not everybody can afford psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of hoping that if people logged on to that Facebook page and there was a little blurb every now and then from me, that they could maybe take something from that without having to pay for it. Mm-hmm. I guess that's been one of my big things, is making psychology accessible for people. So I guess that was pretty much the main motivation behind that. It also, I guess, helps me reflect on some of the work that I'm doing. Probably demystifies what psychology is about a little bit as well. I guess those are the main things. I want to make psychology really accessible for as many people as possible, and I guess that's why I will do so many, free gigs a lot of the time. Whether it is, coming and doing a talk to a team, whether it's decreasing, I don't know if I should even be saying this, but decreasing what I charge from time to time to be able to get someone through the door. All those sorts of things, because I don't want psychology to be out of reach for a lot of people, because that does sadder me quite a lot.
And working in the private sector, I know working with children for Kids Vision, there's often the people that you see that you want to put through our visual training program are the ones that it's the most out of reach, and not being as a recognised protocol, there's not the funding systems there. Is it the same in psychology? There's limited funds to go around for a private sector?
There is limited funds. There is limited funds, really. But there's some really good places in the public sector when they can get the help. It's just the wait list is so long. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. Whereas most of us private psychologists, our wait lists aren't so long because we probably limit the amount of people that we'll see at a certain time. But again, that then comes with the cost of private psychology, which is rather expensive, especially for here in New Zealand. But again, it is really worth it, as you can probably testify to. But it does put psychology out of reach for a number of people. So I guess you've got to try and access, public health, primary health organisations and things like that, which also do a really good job. But it just sometimes takes a bit of time to wait.
and probably still an access issue, but is psychology something that you can get out of insurance? Or,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So some of the sleep psychology work that I do, Southern Cross Health Insurance, I know we're affiliated with them, so they'll often pay for around about 4 sessions. So definitely insurance companies will help out with that from time to time. Yep. Some organisations will put together packages of care if they're waitlisted too long for you to go see a private psychologist, so that's sometimes an option. So there are options out there, definitely.
Yeah, I know a really good move from my employers that we have it's on the phone, but we can call anytime, and anybody that you live with can call if there's any issues.
Yeah.
Just while you're touching on the sleep psychology, tell us what it's about.
Yeah, so I guess my role with the sleep psychology is I've been mainly treating insomnia.
Yeah.
Okay. So often the doctor does a lot of the screenings to make sure that there's nothing physical going on and that it is probably insomnia, which I guess we characterise by people struggling with thoughts to get to sleep, or struggling to maintain good sleep, or waking up frequently during the night and then not being able to get back to sleep. And this can often happen, well, I guess insomnia is characterised by, it has to happen for over a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. You say that you got some sleep?
No, I'm not looking forward to it.
I mean, sleep problems, they affect, I think it's up to about 70% of people say that they have poor sleep, report poor sleep. I think 6 to 7%, maybe even 10% would probably meet criteria for insomnia.
Yeah.
And it's such a big thing because people just want to sleep, and you need to sleep, So I guess a lot of the work that I will tend to do in that area is to try and work out what sort of thoughts or what beliefs a person is struggling with that is causing them to not sleep. So sometimes like the belief or the thought that if I don't sleep tonight, I won't be able to do all the things that I want to do tomorrow. It can make people really anxious, which then fires off what you're talking about, the amygdala. And then if the amygdala is firing off, you start to become a bit hypervigilant, a bit wound up, because then the survival mechanism, the brain goes, oh shit, something's happening, there's some sort of threat going on. Why the hell would the brain or the body want to sleep when it's sensing some sort of threats going on? So then people struggle to sleep. So I guess a lot of sleep psychology is about, well, how can we learn to manage those thoughts a little bit more, to slow the brain down, slow the thinking down, or help the thinking become a little bit more realistic. I guess they're the main things you'd be working on. And again, CBT is the best form of treatment for insomnia. So I've mainly been doing a lot of that stuff, although I have been dipping into quite a bit of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, and a bit of mindfulness. So that seems to be working really quite nicely at the moment.
I've seen you asked about my spiky mat over there.
Yeah.
It's something that I've found and seen plenty of people report on, that a good 10 minutes really honing into calming down your sympathetic nervous system just puts people out. And is that where you try and focus with the mindfulness?
Yes, definitely. So you got the sympathetic nervous system and you got the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
So I always was my friend. He always helped me remember what the parasympathetic nervous system was by thinking of a parachute, and that's like slowly calming down. Yeah, he had all kinds of little things like that. No wonder he's a doctor now. You definitely try and activate the parasympathetic nervous system as much as possible, and that can be done just like some good breathing techniques. With that thing there, you're probably using quite a lot of tactile stuff to focus your attention onto things other than unhelpful thoughts. Again, when we talk about mindfulness, not focusing too much on the future. What have I got to do tomorrow if I don't get sleep, or worrying about or getting upset about what's happened earlier on in the day. Oh, I wish I'd done that, I wish I'd done this. Because those are often the thoughts that keep the brain really busy. Yeah. So just doing some nice diaphragmatic breathing will really calm the body. Even just stretching and things like that. Some good meditation, listening to some nice calming music. I think the key thing for people is to really get a good bedtime routine. And actually probably my wife Maria and Sienna probably taught me that the best. Is actually getting Sienna, she knows exactly that it's dinner, then it's bath, then it's change clothes, nappy, bottle, read book, bed. So her brain, by the time she's starting to have her dinner, is starting to get ready and get into a nice little routine and starting to get ready to get for bed. Yeah, which is pretty cool. It's the same as what we should be doing as adults as well, is having a consistent bedtime. So our brain knows when is it time to start to slow down. Things like having a bath are actually really good because it heightens, it increases the body temperature almost artificially, and then when you get out of the bath, the body temperature starts going down, which is exactly what the brain starts doing to the body as we fall off to sleep. Yeah. So you can almost simulate that falling asleep stage with that. Brushing your teeth, cold flannel, tea, read a book. As long as that routine's pretty much the exact same time in bed, you start getting off to sleep a little bit quicker. Well, that's one simple thing that you can start doing.
Nice. It's interesting you talk about that cooling off. I've finished Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, and one of the things that he swears by is this mat that you can put on your bed that circulates cooling temperature, cool your body temperature down. The second half of that journaling is writing 3 things that were great that day and 3 things that could have improved it, and like you say, get it out of your head and get it onto the page, and then it's there, and actually that's not that bad. Yeah. And often I've struggled to find 3 things that could make the day better. Yeah. It's really good, and especially if you're away somewhere, you go to try and write 3 things down that make the day better, and you go to bed going, that was an awesome day. Yeah. And I haven't tried it myself, but apparently apple cider vinegar and honey is a knockout tonic.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of a worry journal. So just putting your worries, your thoughts out on a piece of paper, and then just almost trying to solve them in some way or another, so that before you go into bed, because often all those worries pop up. Yeah. And it's really hard to try and solve them, but at least you can sit there and you can tell yourself, well, actually, I've solved those problems. It's written down. I know what I need to do tomorrow. Yeah. And I like the idea of writing 3 things that you enjoyed about your day. I also like the idea of, what's one example of courage that you showed today? What's one example of something you learned today? And what's your happiest memory from today? 3 nice things to be able to reflect on. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, mate, where can people find you? We said it there, Vettise Psychology, is it?
Vettise Psychology, yeah, very original name. Yeah. I wish I could have come up with something cooler, but just Vettise Psychology. So I've got the Facebook page, Vettise Psychology, and people can get a hold of me there, or I guess vettissepsychology@gmail.com. Or otherwise, I guess my office is based in Hamilton, 131 Cobham Drive, which is also the sleep clinic there. Yeah. So if people need some help with sleep, then they can also come and refer there. Yeah. I guess those are probably the main places. Otherwise, I'm hanging out at the velodrome with a few of the athletes over in Tauranga, some of the Black Fern Sevens players.
Nice. And is there anything that you'd like to leave people with? Any thoughts or ideas that they could apply?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and probably the most advice that I seem to shell out, is understand yourself. Learn what your authentic self is, and then try and live that as much as possible. So what are your core values? What's really important to you? What does that look like in terms of what are your behaviours that you want to show that will exemplify those values, and actually live it? So I guess the easy mantra would be know yourself, be yourself, and stay yourself. Yeah, and probably putting a lot of work into that will really help.
Yeah. We're good. Thanks for asking me.
No worries.
Cool. Done.